Audio's going.
Oh, you were over here.
Let's do a quick sound check. Gene Brazel, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
You.
All right, let's go ahead and get this meeting started. Tonight, we're going to have a city council meeting. It's March 25th, 2025, and we are down at the mill. We are also recording this for later publishing on our YouTube channel. And with that, I would call the meeting to order and ask all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Let's go to a roll call, please.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peters Hagen,
Present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Shipman,
Present.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Present.
Councilmember Ewing,
Present.
Councilmember Tagent.
Great, we have everybody here, and can we get an approval of the agenda, Council President?
Yes, I believe we have one addition to the agenda, and that's a department report from Barb. Is that correct? Okay,
Okay, and we're going to
Quick
put
verbal
that
report.
under Department Reports?
Yes.
okay, so with that in mind, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So
Move to
moved.
approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you have an agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent, very cool. Let's go to guest business, and I'm not sure why this is under guest business, but let's go to swearing in of Amanda Van Hook.
Council and mayor and citizens, I get to reintroduce Amanda Van Hook. Amanda was hired on September 17th, 2024. She went to the academy November 5th of 2024. She graduated on March 19th, just a week ago, and now she's assigned to her field training. She's going through orientation for 2 weeks, and be with the field training officer, and she'll be off FPO right around July.
All right.
You ready?
I think so, but I stand
You
in
want
front
to
of you
introduce your
or?
family real quick since they're here?
I've got my mother-in-law Julie, my husband Troy, my son Braden, and my friend Jen.
All right, Mayor.
Let's do it.
Hey. Where do I stand?
Where
Where everybody can see. Okay.
Got a microphone, Brett?
Oh.
People online like to hear you.
Test. All right, ready? Raise your right hand. I, Amanda Van Hook,
I, Amanda Van Hook,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United
and
States
state of Washington,
and state of Washington,
the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
and the mission and regulations
and the mission and regulations
of the Lake Stevens Police Department,
of Lake Stevens Police Department,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially
and
perform
discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of a Lake Stevens police officer
of a Lake Stevens police officer
according to the law
according to the law
and the best of my ability.
and the best of my ability.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Last time, thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, it's great to have another police officer on board. I had a great opportunity last week to go up for the second ribbon cutting of the North, what do they call it, Chief? The Northwest Regional Academy that's up in Arlington. The governor was in attendance there as well as Senator Lubbock, and we got to cut that ribbon, and I think our officers will now start going to that academy instead of down to Burey, and it'll be closer and able to commute and be with their families in the evenings. That's great, great news. So with that, let's go to citizens' comments, and we are first going to go online. Anybody who may be online needs to raise their digital hand to see if they have citizens' comments for the council tonight.
I do not see any digital hands. So as the mayor mentioned, please raise your digital hand if you'd like to speak to the council. Nope.
None? All right, we're going to go in person here and I've got one sheet. Matthew Fortin, if you want to take the podium, state your name and address and take 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. Thank you for the platform to speak. My name is Matthew Fortin. I live at 119th Drive Southeast, Lake Stevens. So I'm just 5 minutes from right down the road.
Right.
So I'm here tonight because in addition to being a 13-year resident of Lake Stevens, I'm also a veteran. And right now, the veterans in this community are in a little bit of trouble because the VHA, or the Veterans Health Administration, is under threat of a massive reduction in force. Allow me to explain. On January 24th of this year, our current administration fired our Inspector General of the Department of Veteran Affairs, Michael Missel, and we are without an Inspector General to this day. On February 5, we received a new secretary, Doug Collins. He was sworn in as secretary. And under Mr. Collins, we've lost over 2,000 jobs, and we stand to lose another 80,000 jobs by June in a massive reduction in force. The veterans in this community need your help. And I respectfully request that the Veterans Commission be reinstated with immediate effect so we can gather the comments from the veterans in this community to pull together and send to our representatives in DC. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. All right, let's go to council business, Council President.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and start on this end because I have nothing this evening. So Councilmember Jorstad,
Thank you. I also have nothing this evening.
Councilmember Daughtry,
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Peters Hagan,
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Shipman.
So I'm the only one that's got some.
So far,
I, along with Councilmember Petershag, was there too, attended the MBA Economic Forecast Breakfast. I have to say there were no surprises. The entire state's dealing with the same challenges: high interest rates, increase in building fees, lack of land, more regulation. Getting affordable housing is a challenge throughout the state, and Lake Stevens is not alone. So unfortunately, I didn't discover anything I could bring back and help us other than we're all kind of in the same boat. I also attended the school board meeting. It was held at the district office. And so whenever they do it there, they always recognize students and staff. So that's always rewarding to see. The other thing that they focused on I wanted to discuss is their food services. Part of their bond is to improve their food services. And so they went into quite a bit of detail. And so our kids will begin getting healthier meals, more like home cooked meals. They're going to be able to ship them like flash cold them, not necessarily freeze, but make them really cold, ship them cold, and then be able to reheat them at the schools versus shipping everything warm and it being lukewarm by the time our kids get it. So they're pretty excited about that. The number of meals they serve is tremendous. We're also going to have another summer of free lunches. Last year, it was a huge success and it was a great way to pull together our community. They approved for our Lake Stevens students to attend the DECA International Career Development Conference in Orlando, Florida next month. So that's pretty exciting for them. They adopted a new policy, policy number 4161, which is civility in the workplace. So it addresses not just teaching staff and support staff, but also the board of directors themselves with the school district. So now they kind of have like a code of conduct that they have to follow. And then the other thing they discussed was staffing and growth. And like, most school districts are seeing a decrease in attendance and in enrollment. We aren't seeing much. We're seeing about a 2% slight decrease in all the schools with the exception of Cav. Cavallero is actually up a little bit, but they've watched that enrollment bubble from the time they were in elementary school move forward. So they were expecting that bubble at Cavallero. And that was about it, other than tomorrow night is another board meeting. If anyone wants to attend the school board meetings, this time it will be at North Lake Middle School and they start at 6:30.
okay, Councilmember Ewing.
Thank you. So I'll disagree with Councilman Daughtry, since he and I both did the interview panel for the citizens earlier today. So he just said he didn't have anything. We actually did. So, but we enjoyed meeting with some of our residents and that want to be parts of our boards and commissions. And so thankful to the chairs of those organizations and the citizens who put in their applications for that. So as Kim said to one of the candidates, so without the boards and commissions, so the city council and the staff would have a lot more work to do. And so we're grateful to the citizens for their efforts.
Thank you. Councilmember Tagent.
Nothing to report.
All right, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, great. And I'll go ahead and forego comments as well, to keep the agenda rolling. Let's go to a city department report from Public Works, the Public Works Department, Ben.
Hello, council. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. I'm Ben Renaji. I'm the senior citizen. Sorry. Okay. Hello, council. I am Ben Romanagi. I am the senior civil engineer with the city of Lake Stevens, Department of Public Works. On March 4th, myself, Kim Klinkers, our city engineer, and a few consultants attended a city council workshop meeting about the 116th, 117th pedestrian loop project. During that presentation, you had a few follow-up questions for us. And so this is the follow-up to that. So I'm going to share my screen for 1 second. So your first question was about the can swales help the water quality for Lake Stevens in reference to a multi-use path. So first, let's talk about the existing water or stormwater system. Currently on 116th Avenue Northeast, runoff is collected by catch basins and then flows downward into Mitchell Creek without pretreatment. On 117th Avenue, everything north of the 22nd Street here, so everything from here to here, flows over to this pretreatment pond on 120th Street over here. Everything south of 122nd Northeast flows downward, and eventually goes down into Lake Stevens without pretreatment. And swales would help those regions without any pretreatment. Another kind of follow-up is that curb and gutter would decrease the water quality compared to swales. Currently, some of that runoff is collected by the vegetated shoulders around without the curb and gutter present. So any sections that has that runoff would get worse with that curb and gutter, as well as increasing the frequency of maintenance for this maintenance pond. Third, all sections have concrete storm pipe. The sections on 117th south of 22nd are in pretty poor shape, and so would need to be replaced sometime in the future. Everything else on 117th and 119th are in good shape. And those would add additional costs to any sidewalk or multi-use path project in the future. And with the pilot program that we're doing, pollution would stay about the same as before. I'm going to stop my sharing. The second question you had was to look at, could we implement 20-mile-per-hour zone for this pilot project? And it's something we would definitely consider along with some of our other proposed improvements. Decreasing vehicle speeds does prevent collisions and also lessens the severity of injuries. But however, in general, reducing or just changing the posted speed doesn't lead to a reduction for driver behavior. You need other traffic calming measures to do that. This pilot program would do so with smaller traffic lanes, as well as the presence of pedestrians in sight of vehicles. And we can investigate other solutions for a permanent solution. Also, there is an RCW available that allows you, the council members, to set the speed limits to 20 miles per hour. This is recommended by WashDOT for local streets and has already been implemented in Seattle, Tacoma, Bainbridge Island. And so this 20 mile per hour zone could be investigated for a larger region of the city, as well as other traffic calming elements. The third question you had was about the cost of this pilot program. So the current estimated cost to purchase and install materials for the proposed pilot program is around $48K. This work includes about 400 white candlestick delineators and 40 signs. And the cost of these materials alone cost about $25K, but could be reused elsewhere in the city for other projects. And And so really this project would only cost about 23K. And we can also think of this as a research investment as well. Traffic studies can cost anywhere from 15 to 30K. And sometimes you realize the project doesn't work after you've already implemented it. And by doing this pilot program, we can make sure that we can work with the community to improve any permanent implementation. We're also deciding on an open house date as well to interface with the public. TBA, it is April 9th, but we'll let you know and the public know further. There is also an FAQ release addressing many of the comments from the public and is available on the public website. Any questions?
Ben, I had one question. Just to clarify, because I've heard some comments that make me think there might be some confusion out there regarding when the pilot program will begin. The timeline on the FAQ page, it lists for mid-April, it says we need your feedback on the pilot phase. Am I correct in assuming that that's regarding implementation of the pilot phase, not after it's been completed?
So for the open house, we'll request some feedback, both for some of the pilot program and for what a permanent implementation could look like. One thing that I'm a big fan of could be self-watering planters that individual houses could adopt and put the plants in and the city could pay for, and that would provide a traffic calming element. And then during the open or pilot as well, there would be feedback from the public. It's too.
But the pilot wouldn't begin until May, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then would there be another opportunity for the public to provide feedback after the pilot's complete?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
How long will the pilot go for?
We want it to run for at least a month, but we're also open to letting it run for longer too.
So I guess just for the sake of public edification, I'll state the obvious. I've heard some concern about the speed that the pilot program is going to be implemented at. Am I correct in assuming that we're doing it now so we can measure the data during school hours? Because any longer we'll run into summer and it won't be the data we need.
That is correct. I
Okay.
mean, the high school and North Lake Middle School are both right there and would be affected by it. And it would be when we collected the initial data, it was when school was in session. And so we would want to have that comparable data.
Okay, thank you.
When and where is the open house?
It's still TBA, but we're currently hoping for April 9th here in the Sawyer's room here.
What's the holdup on scheduling it?
The what schedule?
What's the holdup on scheduling it?
We need to gather some materials for the open house, and just in terms of exhibits for the to show the public.
Can I, also, Mayor, to answer your question, we were really hoping to hold the public open house on site. We thought the Ebenezer Lutheran Church would be a good open site right in the middle of the project area. And we've, Ben, as the project manager, has been reaching out and trying to make contact with them. And we've had a hard time getting permission from them to use their site. And so now we're just trying to lock down
A location.
a location that makes sense that will get the most appeal. Also, we're trying to be mindful spring break is the first week in April. So we're trying to provide opportunity to inform the public as quickly as possible, but also realizing that it might be helpful. We're thinking about having 2 dates, potentially during spring break and then a week following, just to maximize opportunities for people to come hear about it sooner rather than later. And
Yeah,
provide
let's try not to do it during spring break, to make sure we've got everybody home.
Mhm.
And then are you actually talking to somebody at Ebenezer?
I am. I've reached out to them and I'm trying to get a little bit more information on if we could actually do it there.
Okay, let's nail that down within the next 24 hours.
Okay,
So
can do.
have you talked to Pastor Benson directly?
Talk to.
Pastor Benson, he's a pastor at Ebenezer.
I've sent an email and I talked to the city or the administrator there today, and she said that he may reach out to me in the next couple days.
Okay, great.
I have one additional question. Have any of our service providers, police, fire, waste management commented to you on this proposal?
Fire has, or when we presented this project to Fire a few months ago, and they had some ideas on what type of treatment would work best for them. Additionally, we're going to be providing multiple inlets for providers to be able to get in and out of that pedestrian area, so service can continue unabated.
And police?
And we've not been talking to police so far, so that's something we do need to do as well.
I can add, we did have a coordination meeting with the police and the school district a week or two ago, and Chief was there to just overview this upcoming project and address any questions or concerns, but I would be happy for the police chief to add any concerns or comments to that.
How about waste management in the post office?
Or what was that?
How about waste management and the post office?
Those are some stakeholders we need to get in a hold of as well.
I guess obviously all the council members, and I think the mayor and you folks have received quite a few comments from, there's a petition out there and so forth. I just want to make sure we make every effort to address those comments and have justifiable, reasonable response as to why we're proposing this. So again, we've all, there's quite a few emails that are floating around out there and so forth. So just want to make sure we do the proper job with the public and doing the proper outreach and so forth. So.
Anything else for Ben? All right, great. Good work, Ben. Appreciate it. Looks like you have some follow-up to do. And let's get that date nailed down. Cool. Can I get no, we can't do that yet. We have to listen to Barb. Not that. We get to listen to Barb next as a city department report.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to give the council an update on the gambling tax discussion that we had on March 11th. I just wanted to let everyone know letters were sent out to 9 businesses informing them of the internal review as well as the error on the form related to the pull tabs and punch boards. The letters included the amounts owed and notice of the waived penalties, amounts authorized by council. To date, we have received 2 payments. We've received payments from 2 businesses, both paying the total amount owed, and had communication with 2 additional. They have reached out to us. One has submitted a request to waive all of the back taxes owed in addition to the penalties previously waived. And I believe council received a copy of that letter. The other business intends to pay the taxes owed on their unfiled returns, but have indicated they will request a waiver of those penalties. I am out next week, and in my absence, Finance Manager Matthew Heist will compile the requests and prepare them for council action on April 8th, along with any additional we may receive between now and then. I just wanted to give council an update. We have things rolling. We are hearing things. We will come back to council for some additional action soon.
There's nothing we can do for those people who have $20,000, $19,000 to $20,000 back they have to pay, correct?
The council can waive the fees if they choose to, or they could reduce them if they chose. This just has to be a council action per our code.
I've just got a couple of phone calls from a couple of different businesses just saying $20,000 is a pretty steep hit. They feel like they've been paying the fees as was sent to them by our error, not that we meant to or anything like that, no guilt, but they're like, wow, we're getting hit with $20,000 for the last, 2 years?
3 years, yeah.
A lot of them financially, that's a pretty big hit for them. So might be something to look at.
Did have a question here, just what they said that they were given 1 month to pay.
That's what our code says, but we've actually had discussions with the ones who have called asking if we can do potential payment plans. And we have said, yes, we can do that. Maybe do 6 months worth of payments and waive any interest on those payments as well. But that would have to come back to council and agree to a payment plan as well.
We're talking about what, 10 businesses, 9 businesses that are affected?
9 businesses, and like I said, 2 have paid. One says yes, they will happily pay. They were the ones who didn't file any returns, and they said yes, we'll happily pay. We didn't realize, but they are going to request waiver of their penalties and fees. And then one, I think that owes the most. They're the ones who actually sent the request that they would like to waive all fees, and we provided that to you, and then we'll bring that back again for
I think it might
additional
be worth
discussion.
looking at reducing them to help these businesses. They're tight like everybody else is. So we might look at maybe doing 1 year versus the 2 years. This is a thought to help them out.
Barb, do you happen to know what our ability is to defer these payments as well? I mean, I know you mentioned a payment plan for 6 months, but is it council's discretion on when these are collected entirely, or is there some kind of statutory limit on our ability to adjust that?
Are you talking about how far we can go back? We can go back.
Like how far out could we push, $20,000 worth of fees owed versus outright?
It is definitely up to council how you want to do that. We could push it out as far as you want. We just went with 6 months. Sometimes when things happen, like let's say with payroll, we've allowed them a year, like through the end of the year, so that it doesn't roll into the next fiscal period. Some of those things to consider.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just kind of want to know what our options are. So thank you.
Yeah, I can double check on that, but I don't think there's any statutory requirement that you have to have it within a certain amount of time, or it can't go beyond a certain amount of time. But I'll double check with Greg.
Okay. So do we know how much total is outstanding of this? I mean, we have this one business here that's got just a titch under 20,000.
And I believe that's the largest one. It was in the staff report, I believe, last time. I didn't pull it up. I want to say around 50,000-ish. Let me look at the staff report table.
I know another one's right around 19,000 as well. So the 2 that are pretty comparable. Yeah.
Looks like we had so about 50,000 due to the oversight on the form, and then there was an additional 30,000 owed due to unfiled returns. And so the ones on the unfiled returns, and some of those that filed on the wrong form also had some unfiled returns. We did charge them the interest and penalties on the unpaid taxes, on the ones that they didn't file the returns on, but the other ones we showed them waived. So as I said, there was about $50,000 due to the form error, and 30,000 due to unfiled.
What was the form error on the city's side of the ledger?
Yes.
So I guess I'm wondering why are we, if we sent this form out with the incorrect information, why are we penalizing and going back and adding to it?
And that's something that council has to decide per the code. Per the code, it does say that we can send them out forms, but it is their responsibility to know the code. So it's up to council to.
But if the code was wrong.
The code is right, the form was wrong.
Form was wrong.
The city sent the wrong
Yeah.
form out to these businesses.
The code actually states the correct percentage.
Well, I guess I would say again, we sent the wrong information.
I think if I understand correctly, you're saying we need to own our own mistakes, right? Instead of passing our mistakes on to the businesses that are already in a pretty rough economical time.
And that's the reason that we came forward and recommended waiving the penalties and fees. It is up to council if you want to waive the back taxes due to the form error. You could actually waive the taxes on the unpaid completely. I don't know if you would want to do that on the ones that didn't file returns, but on those filed on the wrong form, I think that would be reasonable too.
And paid, thought they were doing the right thing, and then now we're getting hit with 20,000. If they didn't file, I think that's a different thing. Maybe we can do something different for them, but those who filed and paid, they're just like, that's a big chunk of money to come up with all of a sudden. And
I agree. I agree.
they felt like they were following the letter of the law. So that's where their frustration came from.
They were doing their due diligence. And then to have this come out of the middle of nowhere like this, that would be a shock.
Did anyone successfully, look beyond the form and pay at the?
Yes, but it was a small amount.
Okay.
Maybe we could
So we-
decide upon a small amount or something like that so that, you know, because I can see where as a business, I get this letter, it's not a huge amount, so it's not a huge impact to my business, so I pay for it. And then find out weeks later, oh, if I didn't pay it, city council would have waived it. You know, so I can also see that side of the coin.
Yeah, and I agree. We sent the forms out quarterly incorrectly for many years.
So do we want to bring this back as a action item in the future to correct this?
Yes.
And I think maybe I'm hearing a correction of the city owning our mistake on this and moving forward.
Can we discuss it at the workshop?
We could do whatever you want to, it's your council.
Don't have a workshop next week.
Council can take action tonight if you chose.
Barb, I do have a question. So if we had incorrect information on the form, was our budget forecasting also based on that same number, or were we expecting the higher tax rate to be paid?
No, we were basing it on the form.
Okay, so this is not money that we had earmarked and had already planned for.
No.
Okay.
Great question.
I'm much more inclined to own our mistakes, so to speak, than if we weren't, factoring this money into our revenue projections.
Does anybody want to form a motion?
I'll make a motion that we hold true to the information that was sent out on the form as to the taxes due.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
Is that
Is that enough?
I think, yeah, I do believe so.
So
That- that-
Okay,
So
waiving
if
of
someone
the-
paid already, they would get that money back.
Yes.
wait, so we got a motion and a second.
I got it.
Okay.
So I've got the motion and a second on it. And we're good on, that gives you enough guidance?
It does. We will send letters back out and notify them, those that we are waiving the taxes and penalties due to the form error. And for the one who has paid, based on that, we will refund them.
Okay.
so we haven't
Like
voted
it.
on that
We
yet.
like that?
I
Any
do.
discussion on that?
I do.
I would also, if there could be something in the letter that says, we heard your feedback or we
Yes.
appreciate your feedback. I think it's really important that constituents understand that speaking up makes a difference.
It does.
And also clarifying going forward that this will be the new rate.
Yes.
Or perhaps we don't send the form to them, let them file the form themselves. And I don't mean that,
Yeah.
we're trying to be helpful, but let them file their own forms.
But when we do that, we own the liability, right? So, if we send in correct information, it's their obligation to comply with the law, and we're basically advising them, and we advise them incorrectly. So then we have to own that. So I don't know why.
Correct, and we've-
Providing.
Our code says that they can file on a form provided by the finance department. So we can adjust our code to remove that out and just say file your taxes at the correct rates.
Yes.
Are there other forms that we're providing taxpayers that could come back and find out that could be similar, find ourselves in a similar situation?
We only do gambling tax and utility taxes. And our utility tax rates haven't changed, and they only get a form when we change the tax rate and we say, here's what it is. So that's what we did when we added the sewer rates and when we changed telephone rates, and we did that. But other than that, we don't charge any additional taxes directly. They go through either the county or the state and then come to us.
Okay,
Just for
Call-
clarification, the motion on the table is to hold true to the information on the form for the taxes due. Correct? Okay.
correct.
Which meaning those
And
people,
refund anybody that's paid it since the letter went out.
Do you want to add that to your motion?
That was on the motion.
That was on the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Where it is now.
All right.
Okay.
So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you,
Appreciate it,
Council. I
Barb.
appreciate
Good
it.
work.
Thanks, Barb.
All right, now can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. Let's go to traffic camera discussion with, looks like you, Kim. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Kim Klinkers. I'm the city engineer. I'm here representing Director Halverson and the Public Works Department. We wanted to come to you and just provide a quick update on the traffic safety camera program that was briefly overviewed at the council fall retreat last September. There is a draft ordinance in the packet that was prepared by Director Halverson and our city attorney for you to just start thinking about. I believe it's going to be discussed at the next council retreat in April. In the staff report, so this is just a discussion item for this evening. There are 2 points here that we were hopeful to get some feedback on. That's in the council packet. One is just overall program implementation. If this is still an idea you want to move forward with and that you're interested in, and then also the enforcement scope. I'll just do a quick summary of what we've talked about so far with traffic safety cameras. The primary goal that we are trying to target is enhancing public safety by reducing vehicle speeds and traffic violations for vulnerable areas, such as school zones. And there's new legislation that allows for more broader use of traffic safety cameras to enforce speed limits in other locations. The traffic safety cameras can be deployed in school zones, and there's also school walk zones, which are different zones that we would appreciate your feedback on this evening, in addition to park zones, which was what we primarily were talking about in September. So why does this matter? Traffic cameras reduce both the frequency of speeding and the median speed. And as discussed in September, the Washington Traffic Safety Commission at 25 miles per hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians tend to survive a collision. When vehicle speeds go up closer to 40 miles per hour, fatalities increase dramatically. So the take home is lower speeds or safer streets, especially in our school zones where we have kids and vulnerable pedestrians. So that's a quick summary of what we've already talked about. There is a draft ordinance, as I mentioned, in your packet that we can dig into more at the council retreat next month. But this evening, we are open to your feedback. Specifically, does the council support implementing a traffic safety camera program to reduce vehicle speeds on public roadways? And if so, do you have a preference for the enforcement scope? We would like to start focusing on school zones. We're currently collecting data so we can have similar metrics about the extent of traffic violations and how many and to what degree in our school zones in the city. But we do have the option, if we wanted to look at school zones, we could specifically only enforce when the school zone lights are flashing, like the flashing beacons we have throughout the city for drop-off and pickup times. Or we could expand it to include school walk zones, which potentially we could do 24/7 enforcement at the posted speed limit. And then the 20 miles per hour, the reduced speed limit during drop-off and pickup times. So those are some high-level concepts that we were interested to start discussion about this evening to see if you had any feedback and what additional questions you might have or data that you would like to see at the council retreat next month.
So Kim, what's the operational definition of a walk zone?
That is a good question. I would want to look that up specifically. I think that I believe there's an RCW that might define it as a half mile or a mile radius around a school. But we could definitely research that and come back specifically to address that question.
So if someone's going 21 miles an hour in a school zone, they would get a ticket. Is that correct?
There's different thresholds that we can decide if we want to have the violation be 5 miles per hour or 11 miles per hour. And I think that language is in the ordinance. So that's something that city by city.
I was just looking in the school zone. It said it's a base of 145 for the first offense.
The
And
fine.
it keeps going up. It didn't say that it was 1 mile an hour or 2 mile an hour over.
Okay, let me just take a quick look. I think are you looking at 7060?
0.50 fine.
Yeah, I believe on B3, it talks about, if it's in excess of 11 miles per hour.
Yeah, if they go more than 11, before we had.
The fine
cameras,
increases.
If you were going more than 11, like say if you're going around the lake and it's 25 and you're going 36.
Right.
You would get a ticket. This is saying that it's way more. This 11 miles an hour now goes to one 290, so it doubles it up.
It's my understanding that I think the agency can make decisions about those thresholds and the fine amounts. I think there's some flexibility with that. I believe our attorney might be on the call, and I don't know if he's more familiar and wants to comment on that right now, but I think that there is opportunity to look into those options.
Who's the agency?
Oh, sorry, the city is
know
what I was
who.
referring to.
Somebody's got to be the magic guy person.
I believe it's council that's adopting
I thought it was
the ordinance.
the company that is doing this. They're the ones who are going to be issuing the ticket. So the camera goes off,
Right,
goes
but
to,
who dictates though, like you
Oh,
said,
right.
who's designing the parameters of this? And we got the police chief raising his hand back there.
That's you guys, the council.
I don't have a microphone, sorry. So the way this process works is the company installs the cameras and then they have a database. Our officers would be assigned to review those tickets and issue them through the court. So that officers would have the discretion to whether they issue the tickets or not. If that's your question.
Right, no, it's not. I'm asking specifically, what kind of guidelines are you going to give those officers as to if it's 11 miles an hour over?
That's based on your decision, what you guys want to
We
do.
make that decision. It's
So
not
we
the
do-
applicant.
okay.
They're following the
Yes.
direction that we provide them.
Okay.
Okay, so to add to that question, my question is, can we have different levels of discretion in a school zone versus a park zone?
That's totally our discretion. We can set whatever thresholds.
We can set it any camera any way we want, right? So we have 2 miles in a school zone and 6 miles in a park zone.
So,
And higher penalties for white vans.
Of course, but they have to have a ladder on.
Yeah, okay.
I don't
my
have a
biggest thing
ladder.
is I remember
By
them saying that they were possibly going to be able to make $16 million out of our community on these cameras. So that's what as much as they were excited about the safety portion, they were also very excited about raising $16 million from the residents of Lake Stevens as well.
I think what's coming to mind is when we were at the retreat and we were discussing these, the information that they gathered was based upon people driving 11 miles an hour or above. Like when they were looking at 20th Street and Lundin Park, if I'm remembering it correctly, the data was collected only on vehicles going 11 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And the revenue was basically to pay for the cost of the cameras and our police department's hours when it comes to issuing the tickets. It wasn't like a lottery of cash for the city as much as having this program provide safety for our streets as well as pay for itself. So it's not adding additional costs.
And I would like to see those numbers as part of the retreat again, because from my understanding, it goes to safety projects in the community as well, which is great. I just don't know that I would like to see $16 million come from our constituents. I don't want people speeding at the same time, but at the same time, I don't want to.
I don't remember that number. It's not that high. I want to be real careful that number doesn't get out there because that's not,
If I had the wrong number, I just remember a
Yeah.
big number,
That's a
like
massive number.
yeah, that might be over like 10 years, but that's not like an annual thing. I want to be careful that number doesn't get out there. 'cause
if
that's
I
not
misspoke, I totally
correct.
apologize
Yes,
for
I'm good with that,
misspeaking.
Marcus.
And I remember, because I was listening intently on this, and I remember them discussing on 20th Street Northeast that a lot of that traffic isn't Lake Stevens citizens. It's cutting across through Lake Stevens to other areas. So while definitely Lake Stevens residents would and do speed, some of these are people, cutting through to our parks. We have some of the most popular parks in the county. And, are they being safe when they're driving through our parks areas? And so it's not just Lake Stevens residents.
And as part of this, I think a great story out of the Transportation Benefit District ask that we did with citizens is we showed projects that money would go towards. And I think this is another great opportunity within this program to say, hey, look, we're going to do these projects with this money that helps to traffic quiet these areas that we know are generating this revenue, right? So let's reconfigure those roads in a more traffic quieting way. And I think we can create that list and apply this money towards it.
I'm all for the safety aspect of it. I just would like to make sure that we're not overburdening our constituents with fines. I don't think they should be going 11 miles an hour over. But at the same time, for me, there's a little concern there if
Sure.
it's a month. So.
Well, and I think the important thing, excuse me, to remember is, they only have to pay if they speed. So to your point, I think we could proactively, reach out and inform citizens that these are coming, where they're being placed, and make sure everybody knows they're there. This isn't a gotcha thing where we're trying to nickel and dime them. We just don't want people to speed.
And there's signage, correct?
Yep, there's
For all cameras? Yeah.
Kim, can you remind me, or anybody that remembers, was there a discussion too around the trend that typically happens is cameras are placed in an area and then over a period of time, what they see is just a reduction in speed overall in that space, and that then decisions are made around whether to keep the camera there, or whether to maybe move it to a different sort of hotspot in the area. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I can try to elaborate a little bit off of my memory as well. So yeah, before the cameras would even go up, there's definitely an intentional public notification process. There are signs that would be placed in advance. There's even a grace period, I believe it might be 30 days once the cameras are up, that they would be operational, but we would not be sending fines, maybe just warnings like, hey, just so you know, this is here now. So be aware when you're driving through next time. But yeah, we would be continually monitoring the data and the infractions, and hopefully being able to show a change in behavior and increasing the safety on these roads. And then potentially having the opportunity to relocate these in other locations that might need them in the city. I will just kind of add, after the discussion I've heard this evening, Director Halverson has been in contact with other local agencies that have been implementing traffic safety cameras recently. I think in September, we specifically had data about some of our park locations throughout the city, like on 20th Street Southeast and Lundin Parkway. It seems like we would potentially recommend focusing on our school zones, maybe 3 of the highest violations. So that data is currently getting collected, and hopefully that'll be prepared for discussion next month at the council retreat. But that really would represent our most vulnerable road users and where we really, really need vehicles to pay attention and slow down in those zones. So those numbers could look a little bit different than the original projections that we saw in September, based off the numbers and the violations and the volume of traffic and the classifications of the roads. But yeah, to answer your question too, I believe after the first several weeks or a month, there's a significant, I believe 40 to 50% drop in the number of violations once people are aware that they're there, and it significantly changes behavior. And then also the number of violations and the staff time and the projected revenues.
That's great. I appreciate that. I think what I don't want to see happen is us just like blanketing the town with all of these cameras. I think I appreciate the data and being strategic around, looking at some spaces, especially if we know that the likelihood is that will make a change, and that we can then move those to other spaces versus like having.
Yeah, the primary goal is to increase safety and having an opportunity to have additional funding for additional road safety improvements as well. And part of the program development and establishment will be identifying more capital projects that this program could be supported by.
Great.
And I did want to follow up with Councilmember Daughtry's question. I saw on page 2 of the ordinance, there are some definitions here. So specifically, it does define the school walk zone. It does reference an RCW, but in general, it's a 1 mile radius of a school that students use to travel to school by foot, bicycle, or other means of active transportation. If that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. The other question I have now, based on some of the discussion we just had, is we are allowed to do this in school zones, school walk zones, and park zones. Was there a third
Yep.
category of where we could put traffic cameras?
Yeah, I think
High risk.
per the legislation, there's also hospital speed zones, roadway work zones, and then high risk areas. So based off of a city's population, for every 10,000 residents, the city can decide to put 1 camera, an additional high risk location. So that's another option if if council would like us to consider other options.
So are those only for city roads? Does that, so I would take out Highway 9,
204.
and 204. So those are state owned, and so those wouldn't be included in this. Is that correct?
That is a good question. I know we talked about the city and potentially our opportunity or impact to adjust the speed limits on these highways that run through our city limits. I don't know if if Greg, I don't have a specific accurate answer for you this evening. I don't know if Greg can comment on that right now.
I thought when we had talked about school zones, park zones, preliminary to kick this off and maybe one other high risk zone, but it wasn't on the state highways and things like that.
Well, high risk zones, the reason I'm thinking of that, I look at like Highway 9 and Marketplace and I see like missing signs everywhere because there's collisions there frequently. And I walk through there and I see people traveling far in excess of the speed limit, going through lights and things. I see a 204, I see high rates of speed, people traveling 30, 40 miles an hour over the speed limit, sometimes going, seems like 100 miles an hour going down the hill. If there's a way for us to monitor that and manage that, I think that's something even on 20th Street, if that's considered as 20th Street County or is that city? Because
City.
Southeast, yeah, the city.
Southeast.
it is, okay.
Mm.
So if there are high risk locations, based on the information that's provided to the legislature, I'd like to know where those are and that we can consider what those are, because I don't have the crash data in front of me. But for me, I'm supportive of the safety cameras, and two, I think I'm supportive of a different thing for school zones specifically, with the high traffic, you see those areas, the lower threshold for those versus the park zones. Even though park zones are important, there's typically less traffic there. For example, along here, Lundin Parkway, by Lundin Park versus going by, Skyline Elementary or Highland Elementary, whatever. And then also for people that travel, the thing that blew me away was the number of people on Lundin Parkway that were traveling in excess of 50 miles an hour. So it's 20 miles an hour above the posted speed. I mean, there was legislation for making that a criminal offense, going over 20 miles an hour. There's legislation this session. So there is appetite for keeping people from traveling at those rates of speed. So increasing a tiered system, someone's driving 20 miles an hour to speed, it makes it difficult for me to support a justification for someone to go 50 and a 30 or 55 and a 35. I just don't know that there's a reason for that. And there should be a significantly increased penalty for that dangerous behavior.
Mayor Greg's got his hand up. Greg, our city attorney.
Oh.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, yes, the legislation allows the cameras at certain intersections of city streets with state highways. Again, it has to be based upon an analysis showing that there's a significant speed issue or failure to stop kind of issue at that intersection. And yes, the legislation does allow the council to set these minimum thresholds over the posted speed where the camera would click and a ticket would be issued.
So Kim, on that point, I guess one thing, just as a follow-up item on everything we've discussed would be, some possible metrics for how we would determine these high-risk zones. Because I could think of a couple off the top of my head. So, some ideas or what you guys feel is the best way to determine those and rank those. And then also another thing I'd be interested in, I won't put them on the spot tonight, but Chief briefly mentioned that these tickets are going to require officer review. So I'd be very interested to know what kind of burden that's putting on our police department, since we're, chronically overworking them anyway. I just want to see what kind of impact, one or two or however many officers reviewing tickets would be on the police department.
Right. The legislation itself lists a number of criteria that have to be taken into account in the analysis as to where to put the traffic camera. This is really, if you read through the proposed ordinance and look at the it's not a simple piece of legislation. It's kind of a complicated piece of legislation, and the decision to place traffic cameras has to be justified first on a report performed by our traffic engineering department that would justify the placement of the cameras based upon the criteria in the statute. We can be sure to point that out to you the next time we meet on this or at your retreat.
Okay, thank you.
Can there be I don't know, warning phase, I guess, where you get a warning. In other words, they'll, it's the first time they've gotten a ticket. The cameras have just been up there for a few weeks. Or would they start ticketing immediately? You have a period of time where they receive a warning versus a citation.
Right, yes, it's written in the statute. There's this, as Kim noted, there's a warning period that our citizens have to be notified and warned that these cameras are taking place. It requires postings on our website and so on and so forth, and requires a period of time where people would be issued a warning instead of a ticket. So they get to know and get used to those cameras being there. It's, as I say, it's an interesting piece of legislation. But yes, there's ample opportunity for warnings before someone actually is ticketed.
So I just had two more things, Kim. So I'm supportive of the school zones only during school hours when the lights are blinking. I don't like the cities that have the light, have it 24/7 regardless. So in the summer, they have it going in the summertime. It just doesn't make sense. So when school's in session, when there's a risk of children there, I'm supportive of that. And I would like to see the top 5 high risk zones based on the legislation in our city. And then we can look at that, see if that's something to consider.
Steve, I'm curious just to know, and maybe the rest of the council, would you be supportive of it being in school zones during school hours if it doesn't have a blinking, not all of our school zones, I don't think have blinking lights. Is that, oh, they do?
Yeah, they're all fixed in the blinking lights are now installed.
Well, that's,
Schools, okay.
that's cool. All right. Never mind.
And if school gets canceled, we
Yeah.
can blink.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Northlake does it. That's worse.
Okay. You can unblink the lights and then can you also turn off the cameras? Like if school gets canceled?
There's a big old switch you just flip.
We're gonna put it, we'll put it at your house.
It's under the mayor's desk.
There's all kinds of switches.
I just did, well, okay, I'm just kidding.
So Angie, is your question just like, as far as like the safety and saying, hey, like while it's in session, I mean, that's the intent. So if schools count for snow or whatever, or power outage or whatever you're saying, you would want that to be enforced in a school zone when school in session. Is that?
That's my initial thought about, talking about it more, but yeah.
I think that'll be great to bring back at the retreat.
Yeah. You got enough info to come back with?
Yes, I appreciate all the questions and feedback, and we'll bring more information in April.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. All right, that is all we have on the agenda for the public. We do have an executive session that we're going to go into. It's a confidential session of the council per RCW 42-30-110, and it's a discussion about property acquisition. There's going to be no action to follow, so we'll come back and adjourn with no action. How long do we need for this one, Sarah?
15 minutes.
We going 15 minutes?
We can do it in 15.
Let's do it in 15 then.
let's
We're gonna
give
call it
two-
15. Let's come back
done.
at 7:15.
Okay. We need like 2 minutes to get set up, so maybe 7:17.
Go ahead.
All right, we are back from executive session with no action to follow. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?